The non-standard rental provision is the next form that we'll discuss. It's essentially a checklist. It's a two-pager. We're looking for every tenant on the lease to initial by each one of these statements, as well as sign on the last page. The first item I need to discuss, section number 1, is just a checklist of some things that we need to give out the lease signing. The first of which is a move-in, move-out report. This is what you'll use on the first day of your lease. We'll need you to go through the house and itemize any problems with the house, such as a mark in the floor, or perhaps there's a small stain in the carpeting. Things that aren't necessarily maintenance related, but things that you don't want to be held responsible for. We'll use this form when you move out to see if there's any changes and see if there's any damages that we need to charge for. The second form is tenant and landlord's rights and responsibilities. Essentially, this is an outline of all the ordinances that go into signing leases in the city of Madison. The city wants you to be familiar with what your rights are under your lease, so please be sure to read through that. The next one is the City of Madison Fire Department form. Essentially, it's an outline of the new fire ordinance that the City of Madison passed. Please read through this form. It comes along with the instructions from the manufacturer on your smoke alarms. We'll need everybody that's on the lease to sign this form. Number 2, security deposit withholding. Essentially, there's 12 ways that a landlord can charge against a security deposit. And what we're trying to do here is just state the 12 things that we need to avoid next year. We want to return a full security deposit. It means that rent was paid on time, there weren't any damages, and that's exactly what we're looking for. I'm sure you're looking to receive your security deposit back plus your interest. So read through those 12 items. If you have any questions, we'll take those at the end. On the second page of the non-standard rental provision, you'll see section 3, future lease terms. Essentially what we're getting at is the lease that you're signing today has an expiration date, and once that lease ends, that's it. There's no more contract. Your group will be given the first opportunity to renew the lease for the next lease term, but if we're doing so, then we're doing so with a new lease. So after this lease expires, neither party has any contractual obligation to one another. Section 4, landlord's right to enter. There's always a 24-hour law that requires landlords to give notice before entering an apartment. We build on that a little bit. It's a 48-hour rule that we have. We always have to give you 24 hours notice if we're setting up a showing. For instance, if we've got a showing at 3 o'clock on Friday, we have to drop off notice or call you or send you an email by 3 o'clock on Thursday notifying you of the 3 p.m. showing on Friday. However, if tenants are requesting maintenance and it's non-emergency maintenance, such as a drippy faucet, we'll assume that we can come over in the next day or two to fix those items. So if you make your request on a Monday, please know that over the next 48 hours during business hours, our staff will stop in there to fix your problem. They'll still call ahead before they stop over. They'll still ring the doorbell, but they'll just assume that you know that we're coming over to fix the maintenance that is requested. Number 5, unit condition waiver. This has to do with groups that are moving in before leases start on the 15th. As we talked about, our leases start at 6 p.m. on the 15th. However, it's quite common for tenants to show up earlier than that and start moving in. Any groups that are moving in before the lease starts at 6 p.m. on the 15th are doing so at their own risk. If you're moving in early, it's really hard for us to determine what's the outgoing mess and what's the incoming mess. We do inspect all of our units, but at the same time, if we have groups that are able to move in on the 14th, you'll be taking on some of the responsibility for cleaning. We're not going to wave this form in your face and say that you moved in early and therefore we're not cleaning your apartment. It's just basically to make sure that we're all on the same page. If you're moving in before your lease starts, we may not have enough time to clean the bathroom floor up to your standards, in which case we'll trade moving in early for doing some of the cleaning. If it becomes 6 o'clock on the 15th, then all the cleaning is our responsibility. So if you have any questions, we'll take that at the end. And that wraps up the non-standard rental provision. The next form we'll discuss is the lost key locks release form. If during the lease period any tenant loses their key, Tallard Apartments recommends the tenants request all locks to be changed. The work is to be done at the tenant's expense. If there's a problem or malfunction with the lock, the landlord will take care of that, but if it's a lost key on the tenant's end, you may be responsible for the cost of replacing the locks. The next form is the Controlled Substance Policy Statement. Essentially, this form reflects the law that drugs are illegal to use and sell inside the apartment. It's pretty straightforward. There's a few paragraphs here, but it all boils down to the fact that drugs are illegal to use and sell inside the apartment. Disclosure of information on lead-based paint. On this form, the state of Wisconsin requires me to disclose to you that there is a possibility that lead-based paint exists in the house because it was built prior to 1978 when they used to use lead-based paints. On this form, I'm using my initials to explain that I have no knowledge of lead-based paint in any of our properties, and the lessor has no reports to give out to tenants because simply they haven't been tested. So while it's a strong possibility that lead-based paint exists, it's also been painted over several times. There's really not a lot to worry about. There's a pamphlet that's included with this form. We ask that you initial that you've received the pamphlet. Hopefully it'll answer all of your questions. Really the main thing to remember is that the possibility of lead-based paint exists, so try not to eat any paint chips. After you're done initialing on this form, please sign on the bottom. Move-in cleaning condition. On this form, we're discussing our turnover policy in regards to cleaning. Our leases end at 8 a.m. on the 15th and start up again at 6 p.m. on the 15th. And I'm sure you've heard a lot of horror stories where tenants are kicked out and left homeless for a couple of days so that the landlords can get in and clean apartments. We found in our practice that this step is not necessary, but it does create a little bit more of a hectic day on the 15th. All of our leases end at 8 a.m. and the law requires us to give our tenants up until that time to start cleaning their apartments. So the earliest we can get in to start cleaning is 8:01. And then we like all of our tenants to move in later in the day at 6 p.m. on the 15th, and that's what we're agreeing to today. We're just asking for a little bit of patience with our move-in policy. We don't kick anybody out early, but it does make things a little bit more hectic when we have tenants that leave their apartments in bad shape. So what we're promising is that we'll clean all of our apartments up to your standards. Some standards are different than others. Some apartments we'll think are in pretty good shape, only to have the tenants come in with a laundry list of things that they want cleaned. We'll have cleaning crews working for us that entire week of the 15th, from the 15th to the 19th. And we'll definitely clean all of our apartments up to your standards. We're just asking for a little bit of patience in exchange for not being kicked out early and left homeless. If you have any questions, we'll take that at the end. The next form we're going to discuss is the trash disposal form, which basically outlines the City of Madison's policies on removing trash. Each apartment will be provided a large brown cart for trash as well as a large green cart for recycling. It's up to the tenants to wheel these carts to the curb for collection every Thursday morning. The city allows you to put your carts out there Wednesday evenings after dusk, and then once the trash is collected, you then have 12 hours to remove the carts from the curb and place them back behind the buildings. Failure to adhere to the City of Madison's trash policies could result in a large fine as well as landlord charges for removing trash. Trash is tenants' responsibility, so please make sure your trash and your recycling gets out to the curb every Thursday morning. The next form we're going to discuss is the heat policy utility waste charge. This form applies to all groups where the landlord is paying heat. Obviously, when we turn on the heat, we're going to want to make sure all of our windows remain closed as well as the storm windows. And failure to do so could result in a $25 fine. That's not to say we go around town with binoculars looking for an easy $25. It's really just a policy so that if we are having a problem with the heat being too warm, that tenants are giving us a call. Failure to call us and keeping your windows open while the heat is on could result in a fine. So please just give us a call if it's too warm in your apartments. The last form that we're going to discuss is the showing for next lease term form. All of our tenants will be given the first opportunity to renew their leases. Once we've established rents for the next lease term, we'll give our tenants 30 days to decide if they want to renew their lease. For all groups that are deciding not to renew their leases, this form allows the landlord to start showing the houses for the next lease term, which starts on October 1st. That's the end of the documents, and I appreciate you sitting through the lease signing video. Thank you.